So, chapters 3 and 4, huh? I mean, where do I even start? The music? Peak. The atmosphere? Peak. And god, the story/lore, what all we learn from the new chapters? God, it's just all so much. But that's not all I wanted to say. Personally, the enemies? Gotta be some of my favorites. Missile has to be top 3 personally, but overall, they were all super good. But what I really want to talk about is the main characters. Tenna, one of my favorite characters. Definitely my favorite boss.
It's a maybe one.
Well, I don't know how or what it is about him or how I would even begin to describe it, but I just like this man. Appreciate this man. Appreciate this man. And god, everything we learn about Ralside, prophecy. Oh yeah, let's talk about the massive roaring elephant in the room. So, the night. This is the night. Okay, now, I feel like this is what most people think, but I have seen people say otherwise. And this is still, somehow, slightly controversial. I am going to be discussing this and a lot of other things in this video, so I just want to say the title isn't clickbait, or, you know, at least isn't fully. I will be talking about it, but in general, I just want to talk a lot about the night/this. Okay, so, I do think that the night is this. At least I'm like 99% sure it's this. There's a lot, and I mean a lot, pointing this out. So what exactly points to the night being this? Well, I mean, where do I even start? Well, let's just start roughly in order. Pretty much the first thing that they do is pull out a bat, which is something very strongly related to this, especially with the cracked bat, which we do if we actually win the fight. There's also their general appearance. They literally have deer antlers. I have more to say about their physical appearance, but that, well, I'll talk about that later. Alright, so, they also sometimes turn into this ball thing, which resembles like a baseball vaguely. They also turn into this bird. I actually really don't know why. This has nothing to do with Des and her being the night. I really don't know why they turn into a bird here. I'm actually kind of confused. I believe that they only do this once too, and I've seen no one talk about this. Why? In the files it's just called Weird Shape, or I think that's what it's called. I believe that's the sprite that's the bird. It's kind of hard to see. I'm just really confused. Moving on, in chapter 4, there is some dialogue that is very intriguing. It says as follows: "And so wept the fallen star, making rivers with his tears. Then, slowly, from the bitter water, something grew. It looked like glass." Okay, this might be a bit to take in, but you can probably guess that I think this is about this. And the shadow crystals. I think the night's element is fallen/star/dark. Given that the shadow mantle protects from dark/star, and the black shard is dark element, the pieces of glass that's mentioned in the book is likely the shadow crystals. Okay, so how does this connect to Des? It's simple. Des is literally a fallen star. Well, okay, maybe not literally. Okay, Des is hinted, stated, implied multiple times to be talented, or in other words, a star. And by the looks of it, they look pretty dark/fallen. I think they're a star, or, well, at least was one before they fell and became, well, this. Oh, and when you first see the night, they're likely crying. Okay, I can totally see this as them crying, but I've seen people say that they're just drooping, like they're falling apart, almost like the amalgamates. And the files do say it's drooping, but I really do think that this is likely them crying. Just another thing connecting them to this book. Okay, so there's probably a lot of things I've missed here, some that are more obvious, but it doesn't matter because beyond a shadow of a doubt, Des is most definitely the knight. And the thing is, I don't even think it's impossible for like Carol to be the knight. It's just like, okay, I really hate this reasoning, but like at this point, why? Like genuinely, why would it be Carol? Like even the stuff that points to it being Carol, like some people say this isn't a bat, it's a sword. And I mean, I think it transforms into a sword, because if Chris's pencil can turn into a effing sword in the Dark World, I think this is bat 1,000,000% can too. And even then, how would she have even got into Chapters 4 Dark World? Because the knight is already there when we already have arrived. Anyway, I don't think it's impossible, but again, just why? But that doesn't mean that I think that Carol doesn't play a role in the story. In fact, I think she is probably one of the more important characters. I do think that Carol is likely the person on the phone. I think she's the one that's giving Chris orders. Now I'm not as certain that Carol is on the phone than say Des being the knight. If I had to put a number on it, I would say I'm like 75% certain Carol is the one on the phone. I think her role, or her deal, is that she's the mastermind. She's the one in control, the one calling the shots. Now, why does she sound like this on the phone? Okay, I really don't have an answer for that. Maybe just ore farming runs in the family. But the fact that they said they would be right there, and Carol then shows up not too long after, is pretty damning evidence in my book. I'm still not 1000% certain, but I'm pretty sure this is a correct assumption. So, where does Death Knight fit into this? Well, I think that the Knight, aka Des, is taking orders from Carol. Like I said, I do think she's the mastermind. She's the one calling the shots. And even in Des's current state, I do think that they're still taking orders. But why? In this powerful aura farming state, why the hell would she still be taking orders from her mom? Now, something that I've noticed is that Noelle has a hard time saying no. This is especially clear in Chapter 2's Weirder Out, but what if it's not just Noelle? I don't think this is obviously said, or hell, it's been a while and I haven't reread all the dialogue, and I don't exactly have a clear picture, but in my head I get the impression that Carol is, in general, is a hard person to say no to. I get that impression from Rudy and Noelle, and I guess Chris seems to go along with whatever she says too. Hell, the only one that really seems to stand up to her is Susie. And with her ability to change fate, that really makes sense in my mind. Now, I don't want to harp on this point because, quite frankly, I can't be bothered to look more into this, and I really don't think it matters too much relatively speaking, but I thought I would at least share it. Not as a potential motive, but possibly part of the Knight's reasoning, potentially, but I'll talk motives a bit later because I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. Okay, this complicates the timeline a bit. Or at least that's what I thought when I was originally typing the script. I have changed my opinion / what I thought a bit, but for now, I'm just going to continue with what I originally thought. Okay, I'm going to ask you a question. How old is Noelle here? When I first wrote the script, I thought she was like 6 or 7, like a preschooler or in grade 1 or something. And if that is true, it kind of makes things a bit weird timeline-wise. Because judging by Noelle's misspelling of December, it's implied that Des is already missing and likely has been for a bit. This would make the timeline kind of weird, with Des being like way older. Judging by Des's room, she seems pretty old. Well, at least a teenager. Paintball, hockey stuff, collecting stuff like knives, etc, etc. Really stuff a kid wouldn't be interested in, or doing. But then you have the old mint can with unique leaves in them. Yeah, it's weed. It's weed. So, with all the other stuff combined, I could maybe see a 14, 15-year-old Des. But with the leaves, I'm going to have to say she's at minimum 16 at least. And this would be weird, because assuming that Azriel is around the same age as her, so let's just set both Azriel's and Dessa's age to say 16, and that's the age that she disappeared. Okay, that just leaves us with how much time has passed between Noelle in this moment and when Deltarune takes place. And I'm going to say first, Chris and Noelle, and like most of the people in Chris's class, are roughly around the same age, and I guess that to be 16. There might be some better evidence for this, but I'm basing this around the fact that Toriel says it's soon be time for Chris to go to college. Again, there's probably some more evidence that I'm forgetting about. I'm just going to base this solely off this for now. So say Noelle is 6 or 7 here, for simplicity's sake. Let's just say she's 6, so it's been 10 years between this and Deltarune. But do you kind of see the problem? Azriel at this point is around 26, and so is Des. Azriel at this point should have very likely been out of college. If you assume that 10 years have passed, things are just weird. So here are my 3 original theories. Number 1, Noelle's stupid theory. Yeah, Noelle was just stupid. She just didn't know how to spell December. This wasn't her forgetting her sister, she just made a mistake. Or it's just December here because of Dark Road stuff. Theory number 2, Petscop theory. Okay, I don't know how many of you know about Petscop, and to be honest, I don't know how much I actively remember. I watched like a Winnie-Goon video on it like 3 months ago, give me some slack. More or less my theory boils down to Des disappearing more than once. In its simplest form, she could have disappeared for like a week, or a year, or really any amount of time, and then they found her. But when they did, she wasn't quite the same. This has the benefit of putting back the age that Des disappeared to. Say like she was 10 or something, then returning, maybe growing a little bit more edgy. And then when she was older, say 16, she disappeared again. Before Des disappeared, she was Des A, but after she was found, she was Des B. Or maybe Des NLM? It's okay if that made no sense at all, or went completely over your head. I'm just trying to connect this to a series I like for the funsies. Plus, I really like the idea. Really, all you have to know is Des disappeared more than once. And maybe when she was originally found, or found again, she wasn't quite the same. Third theory. Yeah, this one is just as simple as the first one. It's just that Des was a lot older than Azriel. There is really nothing more to say about this. Now, I originally had a lot more to say about these, but it doesn't matter too much since my opinion has changed. I asked a few people about this scene, and most of the answers I got was that she was a lot older than 6. And after actually looking over the scene for the first time in a while, and yeah, I really don't know why I immediately thought she was so young. She could easily be like 10 here, and the timeline would more or less make sense. If she was 10 here and 16 now, that means 6 years, and that would be very reasonable timeline wise. If Des was 16 when Noelle was 10, that means she's around 22. And same for Azriel again, assuming they're all around the same age. If they're like a year or whatever apart, it's still fine. And I feel like 22 would still be a acceptable age to be in college. Now, why did I even mention this? Well, it was part of my script, and me skipping over this might leave some stuff out. Secondly, these are all still a bit relevant potentially. Granted, probably a bit less likely, and well, probably me overcomplicating things a bit, but I like these ideas, especially the second one. And I just want to reiterate that I do think that I was just wrong originally, and I think it's very likely that Noelle was just older here than I originally thought. And you know, the super secret third reason, it makes the video longer. Oh, and one more thing, I forgot to mention this before, so I'm just going to randomly bring it in now. Some of the stuff from Death's room could have been from the shelter, like the MREs. Just something of note. Okay, so that more or less just leads me to talk about why. Why is Des the Knight? Why are they doing this? Well, personally, I can't say definitively, but I do have some theories. But here is something I can say more or less beyond a reasonable doubt, is that it's because of Gaster. If I had to say why Des is the Knight in the shortest amount of words, I would say it's because of Gaster. As I believe I alluded to earlier, just look at the Knight sprite. It's very reminiscent of Gaster's sprite, or has a very similar aesthetic. Both are black and white, monochrome, which seems to be something connected to Gaster. And another thing, look at the hands. Remind you of anything? It looks very reminiscent of a certain someone's hands. The Knight, all in all, has a lot of similarities with the Gaster sprite. I think Gaster did something to her, and made her become the Knight. Like, maybe messing with her mind, or just in fact did this to her, turned her directly into this. That just leaves the question why Gaster would even want this. Does he want to open Dark Fountains? Well, I think yes. Gaster does seem to be inherently connected to the Dark Worlds. In the very simplest terms, there's the Darker Than Dark that is part of entry 17, which is repeated multiple times in Deltarune, along with the foamed sound stuff, and there's probably a lot of other things I'm forgetting right now, but it doesn't really matter. It's pretty obvious. I think Gaster is inherently connected to the Dark World, and I think in a sense, maybe one with the Dark. I do really like the idea of Gygus Gaster, but I'm not 1000% convinced. But I do think that would be very cool. Now, why does Gaster want Dark Worlds? Well, I think there could be many reasons, but I'll just highlight 3. 1. Domain expansion. If he's akin to being a part of the darkness/Dark World, he probably wants to expand his influence. Expand himself? Get stronger. Creating more darkness means more of him. So he would have a reason to cover the world in darkness. Reason 2. A bit generic, but I think he could be just, well, evil and or just for the fun of it. I mean, there really isn't too much to explain. He's really just doing it because he can. Because he doesn't care. He's doing it for the same reason why we're playing it. Fun? Curiosity? The third is just a meta reason. He knows he's in a video game. Kinda on the same note as the last one. He might be doing it just cause, maybe because nothing matters, or maybe just the chaos of it all. And I feel like either one could be true, or hell, maybe even a mix of all 3, to, well, certain extents. And hell, I could be entirely wrong, it could be for an entirely different reason, but these in my mind seem the most likely. I do believe that Gaster is behind this. And, well, I can't prove it definitively, but like, I know it's some Gaster BS. Anyway, wrapping this back to Des, I kind of went on a bit of a tangent there that wasn't even in my notes. Besides the Gaster stuff, / Gaster just straight up manipulating her and or controlling her, what would be her reasoning for doing all of this? Being the Knight, so to speak. Well, kind of like before, my gut feeling doesn't scream anything concrete. I feel like there could be many reasons. Most strongly, I feel it could be just, well, freedom. They probably don't like whatever the hell Gaster did to them. Just breaking free from their grasp, or like, just fixing themselves, could be a likely end goal. There's probably a lot of other reasons, but I think I'll leave it at that. Because no matter what I feel, Des, and probably to a lesser extent, or maybe greater, Carol, has a greater plan. I don't think that Des is evil. I feel like there's a plan, a grand scheme. They don't want to end the world, no matter what they do in Chapter 4. And I know that they make a fountain and a titan not long after that, but I feel like the point still stands. I think they've been corrupted, but I don't think that means they're completely under Gaster's control. Even if Gaster did do this to them, I don't think that Gaster would have absolute control over them. I just kinda get the vibe that they're probably not all there mentally. Judging by their movements, they're kind of creepy. I mean, it's just a vibe I get personally. I don't think I would describe them as feral. Like, they're clearly somewhat competent. Like, I don't know, I just get a vibe. The way their arms swing down, the way she's crying, hell, whenever they yell or roar, they look like this. That That doesn't look normal. No other person that enters the Dark World changes to this degree. Death has clearly been changed to some degree. Most definitely by Gaster. And is probably not all there mentally due to many possible things he could have done to them. And in general, their sprite, whenever they're yelling, it kind of seems a bit Wendigo-esque. Being in this state probably doesn't feel good. Sorry if I'm rambling a bit here at the end. I have a lot of ideas and I'm just trying to put them into a semi-coherent way. Anyway, I just want to summarize real quickly. So, why is Death tonight? Well, I think there could be many reasons, but beyond a shadow of a doubt, it has to do with Gaster. He has the greatest motive behind him, trying to bring about shrouding everything in darkness. Still, no matter how much control Death may have, I think they at least have some of their own will. Their freedom, if you will, left. And I don't think that Death wants to end the world. I mean, they could have easily done it already. They do have a plan, or at least following someone's grand plan. I do think that they inevitably want to free themselves. Probably undo whatever happened to themselves. Because, I mean, no offense, but this doesn't look normal. People often complain, maybe just notice, that Black Knife doesn't have the freedom motif. And call it a game theory, but I think that might be on purpose. They're not free, or don't perceive themselves as free, like the others. They're a puppet. Like the Gasters, or maybe philosophically, maybe the prophecies. So given everything, I don't think they're evil. I don't think Death is evil, and I don't think the Knight is evil. While I'm not certain why Death is a Knight, I can say for certain that I don't think they're the bad guy. I think she might just be a, well, lost girl found. Well, I mean, we found her, but we didn't find her. You know, I don't think I've said this before, but even before Chapter 3 and 4 dropped, I thought the game would revolve around us. In the game's FAQ, there's a quote, "There is something more important than reaching the end." And I think that very something is this. We need to find the lost girl. I think we found them, but the girl, she's still lost, trapped. And well, we can't forget. Don't forget. That's just a theory, again. Yeah, sorry for that. I think that's really all I have to say for now. I might talk about this a bit more at a later date, or once I've played through the game 20 more times, or just have more time to gather my thoughts. This was more of an analysis of the Knight/Death than a full theory. Hell, even explaining why Death is Knight. But I just needed to get my thoughts out there, or I think I might seriously explode. As I'm typing/recording this, I do have another video in mind, but that might come out before or after this video. Though by the time you're seeing this, that might have changed. I'm throwing around the idea of maybe talking about something other than Deltarune, or well, the larger Deltarune/Undertale space. I do have a couple ideas in mind. I already started on something a while back, but I don't know if I want to continue that or do something else. But enough about that. I'm sure you didn't come here for me to yap about personal stuff, but I hope you enjoyed the video. And feel free to leave your comments on how you felt. I would genuinely like to hear what you have to say, especially in regards to this video, because I really don't know how people will feel about this. And you know, it wouldn't hurt if you shared this if you liked it, and subbed if you want to see more. Okay, enough of me self-promoting. So yeah, I think that's gotta be all from me. See you when I see ya.